I'm very pleased to say welcome to Simon Hunt. He is a friend from the point of view that I have followed him and seen him for a long time, although this is actually the first time we are talking together. Simon, you're in Dubai. I'm in Europe, actually in Italy right now. And so we're seeing the world from slightly different perspectives, geographically only. You know my background. I've always been interested in understanding risk and protecting against risk in whatever industry I've been involved. So I started in banking in Switzerland, and then I came to the UK at Dixon's, a retail company that we built up to a FTSE 100 company. And then I've continued with on the investment side. And I was so fascinated. Like you, I really enjoyed looking at cycles and understanding cycles. I think Churchill said something like, the further you look back, the longer you can look ahead. This is so true that if no politician, no analyst, nobody actually studies and understands history, and that what we're seeing has happened time and time again. And I believe that you probably have seen that I believe, like you, that we are at the end of a major monetary era. And this one is so big that it's going to end, sadly, a catastrophe for the world. Obviously, this too will pass, but it will take time. So I think the time now is so important from the point of view of protecting against risk. This is why we went into gold investments for ourselves and for our clients at the beginning of this century. And we never changed our mind. And we're, as you know, only in physical gold and helping people around the world. Risk is really the focus from my point of view. And as the risk is more elevated than ever right now, I think protecting against this is so important, and it can come from anywhere. I mean, you're analyzing this from many angles, especially from the geopolitical side. What do you see right now as the biggest risk for the world, and what actually do you recommend people to do about it?
Which is the biggest risk? There are so many of them. I think the biggest risk, and it won't play out for another 2 to 3 years, is whether the world retains the unilateral structure dominated by America, or whether it transcends into a multilateral world, basically led by Russia, China, and now India. I think what we saw at the SCO and the bilateral meetings in Beijing, followed by the military parade, was really a game changer.
Three holding hands was obviously a very strong message to Trump.
And the message that followed up was the military parade with the showcasing of military equipment that, by all accounts, America does not have. But I think what was really important is the way that Modi, who had been playing a two-step dance with Trump and with Russia and China, has now gone into a quick step right into the hands of Putin and Xi.
But isn't that telling us that, this is the end for the West, the end for the United States? Obviously, the EU will follow also. Desperate actions Trump is taking, he's lost, in my view. And, we just see more desperation.
That's a huge answers. That is very difficult. I mean, there are people not too far from his camp actually think he's not a well man. How is he going to respond to what he's seen happening in Tianjin and Beijing? I think that, well, first of all, it's very clear that the big BRICS members, Russia, China, India, and Iran, are not going to back down. Iran is not going to back down on its desire to remain an independent country, no matter what Israel or America throws at the country. And I think it's very likely that within a year, we will see either Israel / America launching another attack on Iran, or else Iran actually will launch the first attack on Israel. As if you look at the map of reciprocation, Iran has got one more up its sleeve. And we know that China and Russia have helped Iran strengthen its defenses. And Iran's foreign secretary has already stated it's a waste of time negotiating with America. So forget about negotiations. And equally, Russia is going to stand firm on its issues over Ukraine. And I think that what will emerge is that China is going to stand firm on tariff and trade issues. So the multilateral world is now, the message that comes out of the SCO meetings and all the bilateral ones is time for action. And Xi actually, in his 5-point statement, actually said it is now time for action. So talk is yesterday, action is for the future. How soon do things break up? I think that you can already see in the last few weeks that Russia is increasing the tempo of taking control of what it wants in Ukraine, which I think includes Kiev, includes Odessa. And then on the other side, you've got the delusional leaders in Europe, principally the EU3.
And Starmer.
Yeah, Starmer, Macron, and Merz. They want more. They don't want peace. They want war to detract the electorates from the problems that they have. Immigration and electorate discontent with the power of Brussels.
Yeah. They don't even have war machines that can make any real difference in Ukraine, do they?
No, they don't. But by all accounts, America, through NATO, will send them what they've got, which actually is not a great deal left. They're delusional enough to send in troops. But we know as soon as any equipment is sent into Ukraine, Russia destroys it. They've destroyed the German Taurus plant that was being set up in Ukraine. They've destroyed the American technology plant that was supplying stuff for the Ukrainian army. And there was one other foreign company producing stuff for the war machine that's also been destroyed. It's how can we find a distraction for our population? In the UK, I'm hearing via a friend in the sort of military intelligence setup that ex-military people are setting up militias in order to defend people as we effectively move into a form of civil war.
Yes, and I'm sure you've seen that there are supposed to be 50,000 or more than 50,000 registered terrorists in the UK. They haven't registered themselves, that's for certain. So this is clearly the intelligence services, MI5, MI6, etc., that have got this list of people. And from what I understand, they're not just terrorists or registered terrorists. There is also a proper plan for these people who are going to make trouble in coming years, to attack infrastructure, to attack water, energy, etc. Are you aware of this, familiar with this? Have you studied that?
No, I've not studied it, no. But what I did hear from the same source, that this group of terrorists, they're waiting for the message to come out of some mosque. it can happen any day.
And it's not in the UK only. You have the same in Germany, the same in France. I was born in Sweden. I'm Swedish and Swiss. But I hear also there are lots of terrorist cells in Sweden because it's been such an easy country to set these up because they haven't got the same intelligence services as they have in the UK, for example. So the risk is everywhere in Europe, isn't it?
I think the risk is high that these delusional European leaders are going to move into Ukraine for the reasons we've just discussed. What's the first thing that they're going to do? Well, the first shot that's fired, funds, if they've not already left Europe, will be flooding out. Then the EU will put in place capital controls.
Absolutely.
What are the global repercussions of capital controls in Europe, given the interconnection of the global financial system?
You say in Europe, but I'm absolutely convinced that we will have capital. There will be capital controls in the US also. Dollar will be under attack. The financial system will be under attack. People want to transfer money out of dollars now are actually doing it now already. And we're seeing it. Americans reports about, especially the big banks in America, looking after wealthy families and individuals, that they're transferring a lot of money into Switzerland and also into gold, of course. There are not many places to flee to, are there?
No.
You got where you are in Uruguay.
Yeah.
Sorry, in Dubai, Uruguay is another one. From my point of view, I think Dubai is obviously fantastic now, but, it is next to the Strait of Hormuz. It can't be nearer than it is. It's so near. And, there has always throughout history and even throughout my lifetime been major conflicts in the Middle East. And, of course, then Dubai will be exposed also.
I've obviously given this a lot of thought because I live here here. And my take is that there's a long history of the UAE and Iran working together, and they do so today. There's a large Iranian expat force living in Dubai. There's a very modern and large Iranian school. The conclusion I come to is that if America is stupid enough and Israel is stupid enough to launch a really destructive attack on Iran, I think the hidden agreement between Tehran and Abu Dhabi is we will leave you alone, but we are going to attack and destroy the American base in your country. Fortunately, the American base is right out in the desert.
Yeah, and close the Strait of Hormuz also.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Absolutely. So that affects up to 25% of the oil in the world, which obviously in itself was a massive acceleration of the downtrend of the world economy.
I mean, from UAE, the impact on the population will be a huge increase in inflation because everything of importance and food, most food is imported. What shipping lines will be prepared to ship into this region? So, I mean, one of the mantras that I give to friends here is make sure that your deep freezers are full of food. In fact, it's a mantra I give to everybody because I think that food prices over the next 2 years are going to soar.
I agree, totally.
I mean, already in July this year, the FAO Food Price Index year on year was up 7.6%.
Yes, and you mentioned about the fake inflation figures also in the US, for example, and most of the world. I mean, everybody is manipulating inflation figures downwards. And of course, the US has done it since the 80s, as we know, when they changed the method of calculating inflation. So inflation has always been several percentage points higher than has been reported. Of course, part of my longer-term forecast has always been having experienced in the UK the 1970s and having experienced inflation of 15% or so for 5-7 years. And having experienced when I moved there from Switzerland, and it was £1.10 Swiss francs at £1.10 Swiss francs. Now it's about 1-to-1. And so there you can see the difference between a well-managed economy and a very badly managed economy. I think that trend is going to accelerate now, not just for the UK, but for all of the EU.
Oh, global, no question. Coming back to what you said about the manipulation of the American inflation data, I read a report which was promptly deleted that Larry Summers and his team took the CPI workings back to 1983 and concluded that CPI last year was 9%. What was consumer spending in nominal terms last year? 3%. And the guy I follow, John Williams of Shadow Government Stats, he takes workings back to pre-Arthur Burns days. Inflation on his workings was 10.8% last year.
You know, I've been believing for quite a while. I mean, part of my long-term forecast, I clearly saw at the end of the 90s already, and this is why I decided that we need to protect ourselves. You never know when it's going to happen exactly. And that's why we said, this is going to come. The end of a monetary era is coming. That's absolutely clear in my mind. Of course, we will have ups and downs. We will have stock market bubbles. We will have crashes. But, one thing I've learned that to forecast price is a mug's game. And it serves very little purpose.
Equities is even a bigger mug's game.
Yeah. And therefore, what I'm more interested is in risk and in direction of the economy and therefore of markets also. And to me, already from the end of the 90s, I decided that the risk is absolutely at a maximum already, and it's going to accelerate and get worse. And therefore, you needed protection. And protection, of course, my point of view was there's only one asset that has survived throughout history and maintained its value, and that's nature's money, which is gold. All other currencies, as we know, have gone to zero. It's so easy. If you want to protect your assets, your old nature's money, and you know that at least, as it has been the case for thousands of years, you maintain your purchasing power. You might not always make a lot of money, but now when we've entered an era where governments are accelerating the money printing because the deficits is also accelerating, and now it's such an easy decision. I think this is the easiest investment decision I've made in my life. So, we recommended up to 50% in gold gold 25 years ago. And now I would recommend 100%, or we recommend maybe 25, 30% in silver. I mean, it's obviously putting all your eggs in one basket. But, it's like Rockefeller said, put all your eggs in one basket and look after the basket. and
I can't remember the name of the old Italian family, but there was the story of how they retained their wealth going back centuries. When wars came, they left with their gold and their art. They had title to the lands, and when the wars ended, they came back and they retained their wealth.
Yes, I think we are in that era now. Of course, everybody isn't wealthy and has art. Or in Venezuela, let's say, 25 years ago, if they bought gold then, the dollar was about par with the Venezuelan bolivar. Now, of course, currency is destroyed, the country is destroyed. And if they bought just a little fraction of an ounce of gold in those days, I mean, they would have saved them later. And the same today. People don't need to buy kilos or tons of silver or gold. They can just buy a small ounce, because I see now, this is going to accelerate. Currencies have gone down by 99% in real terms, in gold terms, since 71. It's just 1% to go. But that 1% is 100% from now. And that we are going to experience in the next few years, in my view. How fast it goes, it doesn't matter, really. Protection is more important than, as I said, forecasting the timing. You were talking about cycles of markets going up for a while and then going down. Yes, you're obviously into shorter cycles. In my world, we don't worry about that. We worry about protecting the risk that you have today. And there are so many black swans hanging above us. US banking system, for example. Civil unrest in America. We haven't talked about America. We talk about Europe. It's the same in America. I see civil unrest in a major way in America. It's already there. People are helping themselves, for example, taking or stealing any goods they want in shops. It's not just in America, happening in the UK also. Just walking in, hundreds of people walking into a shop, filling the bag, and they can steal up to whatever it is, $1,000. That's not a crime. And we are already into lawless society, and America will be very high on that scale of lawlessness, in my view.
Trump is moving the reservists into Washington,
Yes.
Chicago, etc., etc.
You talk about capital controls in Europe. I see exactly the same in the US. From my point of view, it's a waste of time trying to forecast which currency reaches the bottom first. There's no...
It's a race to the bottom.
Yeah, exactly. And there's no prize for being the first. They'll all be there, the dollar, the euro, the pound, etc. As we said, they're already 99% on the way. So it's not far to go. But that will happen too. And that will be the end of this monetary era, the way that I look at the world. And that's why protection is more...
complete agreement. Technical Associate has the dollar index, the DXY, halving by the end of 2028. Yeah. The DXY is now about 97. We have it at 50 in 2028. What does that mean to the gold price?
Yes, and you get to the point, Simon, and I've been saying that for quite a while, that, it serves no purpose to measure the gold price in collapsing currencies because it's meaningless. You might as well measure it in chickens or cows or something more useful. I mean, gold and silver should only be measured by weight, really. How many kilos or how many ounces do you own? That's the only thing that counts. You know that you will maintain purchasing power. And if it will be $1 billion for an ounce of gold in a few years' time or $1 million or whatever, it's totally irrelevant because what's the value of the dollar at the time? And that's why, as I said, I gave up forecasting the gold price many years ago because it is a mug's game, and to forecast it in something that is sinking by the day serves no purpose. I mean, I see the US banking system, it's not going to survive in its present form, and nor is the European one, of course. So keeping money in the bank, I wouldn't recommend anyone to hold any money except for short-term spending money. If you have gold or silver, it's total liquidity. You can sell a gram, an ounce, whenever you want, and there's always a price for it. There's always a price. Yes, you talk about capital controls in Europe, but when I see clearly that the same is going to happen in the US.
I agree completely.
So where do people go? That's what they ask, of course. They don't want to be in the EU. I mean, Switzerland always has been a better and a stronger economy than the rest of Europe. Of course, Switzerland is under pressure from the EU. Come into the EU net, comply with more of the laws and the rules of Switzerland, is withstanding it. And of course, as Switzerland sees the EU collapsing, I sincerely hope and I believe that the Switzerland will definitely stay outside of the EU network, whether Switzerland will be a bastion of safety an economic insurance in the future? I think it will, because it's a sounder people and sounder economy than most countries. But otherwise, go to Dubai, as you have done. And of course, it works very well for a lot of people right now. Uruguay is another country. Again, you're in the middle of a poor South America. You have Brazil and Argentina next to you. And when the bad times hit there, I mean, they are going to go to the rich countries like Uruguay.
Sure, yeah.
So that's a risk too. So you have a risk today that unprecedented. Of course, maybe the safest is to go to Russia or to China. But for Westerners, that doesn't feel right. So if you didn't live in Dubai, where would you go, Simon?
If I was 20 years younger, I'd go to Moscow. Where else would I go? I'm already organizing a boat hull should anything blow up here, and I would go to Bangkok. A number of my friends in Singapore and in Hong Kong have already moved to Thailand. Security, cost of living, 6 times less than in Hong Kong or Singapore. Culture is very good. Not geographically so important that they'll be caught up in any major conflict between the superpowers. I think Bangkok would be high on my list.
I agree with you. Well, you already left your home country, but I'm sure you still have affinity with the UK.
Yeah, my kids live there and my grandkids live there.
Yeah, exactly. So let's go back to, is this going to finish? We have all the black swans flying above us, and anyone can drop at any time, whether it's, as we said, social unrest, whether it's war, whether it's collapse of the financial system or the banking system, which, in my view, is absolutely inevitable. It's going to happen. It's only a question of when. It cannot be saved. No one is going to repay any debt. They just create new funny money.
Absolutely. Under Target 2, look how much Germany is owed, Italy, etc., etc. That's never going to be repaid.
US debt's never going to be repaid. And when you have a financial system with the dollar as the reserve currency, being in a country which is issuing massive amounts of federal debt on a daily basis, and there's no buyer of it except for the central bank itself, you're at the end. You know that if you both issue the debt and you buy your own debt, that is the
finished. Yeah.
Ultimate Ponzi schemes, isn't it?
Yeah. Pose the question how all of this is going to end. Come back to where I started, that the real big picture is between the existing unilateral world that has operated for 80 odd years and the evolving multilateral world. It can only end in one of two ways. Either that the unilateral world, i.e. America, accepts that we are evolving into a multilateral world and therefore joins it. That's, under current conditions, is highly unlikely. Only other option is it's going to be war.
Isn't there a third option? America doesn't have to accept the dollar-based system as the reserve currency. Collapses. The financial system in the US collapses. The banking system collapses. Whatever desperate action they take with the whole Trump family now going into Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies and believe that that's going to be the savior of everything. That's not going to happen. In my view, cryptocurrencies are a bubble too, highly leveraged. And therefore, isn't there that third risk? I think that's a major risk, that it's actually led by the financial system collapsing in the West, probably in the US first, but it could be France or the UK starting. It doesn't matter why the trigger comes. Isn't that a very high risk to this system also?
Yes, it is. But the multilateral world and the unilateral world is not just a financial one, it's a political one too. And that's why I think there are only the two big options. Now, you actually given the trigger as to how this war between the two types of world will end by saying, rightly so, that the US and the Western system, financial system, is going to collapse. And in that collapse, you will then have political collapse.
And military collapse.
Everything collapse. And on my cycle timing, that is around 2028. That's only, where are we now, 3 years away.
That's like tomorrow. It's so intellectually so exciting to be in this era now because, to discuss these matters and to try to not forecast exactly, but at least protect yourself and help investors around the world to protect themselves. And obviously with that comes helping family and friends and all of that. I see that as a major task of ours and for people who are privileged that we are, because whether it's 25 or 28 or 29, it doesn't really matter. The risk is here and now.
It's 28. It's only 3 years away.
Yes, exactly. Simon, we're going to have many of these discussions, I hope, in the future. Really enjoy speaking to you. This world is going to move very fast. It's, as I said, so fascinating to try to understand what's happening. Although we understand the big picture very well, both you and I, of course, in the short term, there's so much that can happen. And we certainly want to keep our listeners or viewers abreast of that. So why don't we finish this time and hopefully we'll come back, Simon.
I've much enjoyed it. So much more one can talk about. Leave it to another day.
Yes, let's do that. Okay.
Super.
Thank you very much. Let's finish that.
Thank you too.